A Silverado owner was doing 65 when the engine died, and the recall was already done. NHTSA now has 499 reports just like it, and 26 of those engines were brand new replacements. GM's two-part fix was an inspection and an oil swap, and the real question is whether GM ever understood the defect it was trying to fix. The failure starts the same way every time, and the engine runs fine before it simply shuts down without warning, leaving owners with sudden power loss and no chance to pull over safely. One complainant told NHTSA he was driving 65 miles an hour down the freeway when the truck suddenly turned off, leaving him stranded in traffic with his family. And another reported their vehicle stalled while passing at 70 miles per hour on a two-lane road. These are not edge cases. NHTSA has collected 499 reports of catastrophic engine damage in vehicles that already received the official recall remedy. Most got the oil-related fix. A smaller group got replacement engines. The recall was supposed to draw a clear line between safe engines and damaged ones, and that line is now blurred. When an engine seizes at highway speed, the driver loses power steering and power brakes, and in a heavy truck or SUV, that weight doesn't coast gently to a shoulder. The risk is not just mechanical, it's a safety failure that happens without warning on vehicles that GM already certified as repaired, and the internal damage inside these engines is far from subtle. Teardowns show connecting rod bearings welded to the crankshaft, oil galleries clogged with machining sediment, and rotating assemblies that literally ground themselves apart. These are not wear and tear failures. They are the result of severe, baked-in manufacturing defects, triggering cascading mechanical breakdowns on trucks that already went through GM's fix. In April of 2025, GM filed Recall 25V274, covering roughly 597,630 vehicles, with a suspect production window from March 1, 2021 through May 31, 2024. GM blamed supplier manufacturing problems, naming American Axle and Manufacturing for the connecting rods, and Cuestom Masamex in Mexico for the crankshafts. According to GM's own documents, machining sediment was left inside the connecting rods and crankshaft oil galleries, and crankshaft dimensions and surface finish were both out of specification. That meant bearings were running on contaminated surfaces with irregular oil flow from the start, which is not wear, but a defect baked in before the engine ever turned over. The result was bearing damage that could progress to catastrophic engine failure, which is exactly what the post-remedy owner complaints already described. That's the failure mode, and GM's fix was a two-part gamble that depended entirely on dealer inspection, catching every engine with hidden damage before it left the service bay. Dealers inspected every affected engine by scanning for diagnostic trouble code P0016, which indicates crankshaft or camshaft misalignment, and listening for abnormal noise. Engines that passed got a permanent switch from 0W20 to 0W40 Dexos R oil, a new cap, and a revised manual insert, while engines that failed got replacement short blocks or complete engines. The engineering logic was straightforward. Thicker oil creates a higher hydrodynamic film between bearing surfaces to compensate for marginal geometry in engines that passed. It was not a repair. It was a margin increase, and it depended entirely on the inspection being right. But the numbers are now in, and they don't support that gamble. The post-remedy data is now public, and it doesn't support the gamble that GM built its entire recall remedy around. NHTSA received 499 reports of engine failure after the recall remedy was completed, and 473 of those involved vehicles that got the oil-related fix instead of a new engine, while another 26 involved vehicles that had received replacement engines. That means the replacement pool itself was compromised, either by engines from the same defective batches or by a failure mechanism that GM misidentified, and both possibilities are worse than a single bad batch. GM is asking a federal court to dismiss the class action lawsuit, arguing that owners already received the solution they wanted through the recall campaign. Plaintiffs allege widespread confusion, and the judge appointed interim counsel to represent owners who say the fix never worked. The inspection protocol is where the remedy breaks down, because dealers scanned for DTC P0016 and listened for noise, but never tore down the engine to look inside. They didn't inspect oil galleries for machining sediment or measure crankshaft journals for out-of-spec dimensions, so a scan and a stethoscope couldn't see microscopic pitting or trapped sediment, which means the inspection was a filter that couldn't catch everything, and filters that leak destroy engines. Then there's the population outside the recall window, where NHTSA has identified 191 failures in engines manufactured after May 31, 2024, which GM excluded from the original recall. GM told owners of 2025 and early 2026 models they were not affected because their engines were built after the suspect period, but those engines are now failing at highway speed. Nearly 7,000 owners have reported post-fix catastrophic failures to GM directly, according to federal tracking data NHTSA compiled as part of its expanded engineering analysis. And that number doesn't include the hundreds of complaints filed with the federal government. Those 7,000 reports represent owners who trusted the recall and got catastrophic failure anyway, and they're the exact reason NHTSA upgraded to a full engineering analysis that gives regulators the authority to demand deeper data and broader remedies. The 0W40 oil swap was permanent for engines that passed, which means those trucks now run thicker oil for life. But oil viscosity can't repair a crankshaft machined out of specification. It can't remove sediment from a connecting rod oil gallery, or rebuild a bearing surface that already started to pit. The oil was a buffer against wear, and buffers don't fix design defects baked into the engine from the very first cold start in the assembly plant. NHTSA has escalated the investigation from Recall Query RQ26001 to a full engineering analysis that gives regulators the authority to demand production records, supplier audit data, and failure analysis from GM. The investigation now covers an estimated 997,743 vehicles from model years 2021 through 2026, including lines that GM previously said were safe. And that expansion means engines built after May 31, 2024 are now under the same federal microscope as the original recalled batch. GM told the public the defect was confined to a specific supplier batch, but the 191 failures outside that window prove that explanation is incomplete. There are two possibilities, and neither one is comforting for an owner who just paid $70,000 for a truck. Either the supplier defect never stopped, which means GM's production cutoff was wrong, or the failure mechanism is something else entirely, like a design tolerance stack-up or oil starvation pattern that the inspection couldn't detect. Each scenario carries a heavier cost than a supplier mistake because one means GM misidentified the scope and the other means GM misidentified the actual cause of the engine destruction. If the failure mechanism is a design tolerance issue, then no amount of oil viscosity will save these engines. And that would mean the L87 has a fundamental vulnerability that GM has not acknowledged. If that proves true, the vulnerability would affect every L87 on the road, not just the ones from the suspected batch. This is no longer about a supplier mistake. It's about whether GM fully understood the root cause of the failure before sending nearly 1 million vehicles back onto the road, relying primarily on an oil viscosity increase and a localized inspection. Check your build date against the recall window to see if you are inside the original population or the newly expanded engineering analysis that now covers 2025 and 2026 vehicles built after the cutoff. If your L87 failed after the fix, file a vehicle owner questionnaire with NHTSA. The inspection was a filter, and filters that leak destroy engines when they fail to catch microscopic defects that can cause catastrophic failure at highway speed without warning.